Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house.
Hey, what's up, Shaq Houses? How you doing? It's your boy, the one and only Shaq House here. Back to you with another entry for Black History Month. That's right. And today I decided to go with more familiar characters. These two are not mutants, although one of them might be a mutant, but who knows? I theorize that and I posit that in the video. Who we talking about today? We're talking about everybody's favorite Sweet Christmas, Luke Cage. Luke Cage versus Rage from the New Warriors. They're similarly powered, and they look similar too. They're both black, they're in New York, and they're superhumanly strong. But who are they really, and how do they compare? You find out today. Check it out.
I show my blind rage. The Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles wrestling in a steel cage. Yo, this nigga's crazy.
Luke Cage underwent an experimental process while in prison, which involved submerging him in a high-frequency electric field conducted by an organic chemical liquid. The process was designed as a chemical method to promote human cell regeneration as an aid against both disease and aging. But Cage's treatment was accelerated beyond its intent, inducing a body-wide mutagenic enhancement. Despite possessing normal height and proportions, Cage actually now weighs over 400 pounds, as his entire body is now composed of a much denser and sturdier form of carbon matter. He has superhuman Class 25 strength and can punch through barriers as thick as a 4-inch steel plate. His skin is steel hard, and his muscles and bone tissue are superhumanly dense. He can withstand conventional handgun fire at a range of 4 feet and cannot be cut by the sharpest of blades. Although in the event of required surgery, his skin can be lacerated by an overpowered medical laser. He can withstand up to 1-ton impacts or blasts of 150 pounds of TNT without serious injury, and is impervious to temperature extremes and electrical shocks. His recovery time from injury or trauma is usually 1/3 that of an ordinary human, though it does not qualify as a superhuman healing ability. His skin is virtually impervious to penetration or damage from anything weaker than adamantium, and his internal structure is equally resistant to all forms of physical injury and assault. Fun facts. Luke Cage is a self-taught combatant with years of street fighting experience and a superb athlete despite his great height and weight. He is self-educated in the law and fluent in several languages. He owns a leather jacket which, like his skin, is virtually impervious to damage. However, he wears it infrequently and is customarily left with shredded clothing in the wake of his adventures. He was born and raised in Harlem, and even though he joined street gangs in his teens and cultivated a fearsome image, this man has never used profanity, and that's partly due to the influence of his grandmother, who raised him and disliked profanity herself. So instead, he used "Sweet Christmas," which eventually became his trademark expression. He was sent to Seagate Prison for 20 years for a 20-year bid because Willis Stryker, who's his friend and not his illegitimate paternal half-brother as shown in the MCU, set him up by planting heroin in his apartment. The research scientist who recruited and befriended Cage as the volunteer for his prison experiment was Dr. Noah Burstein, and he was inspired by the original super soldier serum that empowered Steve Rogers as Captain America. But as stated earlier, the treatment was accelerated past its intended level because a corrections officer who hated Cage misused the equipment controls when Burstein wasn't in the room, hoping to maim or kill Cage, but all he did was make him strong enough to escape the Seagate prison. Once he made his way back to New York, he happened upon a diner robbery and subdued the thieves and received a cash award from the grateful owner. This incident inspired his whole hero for hire shtick, to use his new powers for good and profit. Discarding the wanted identity of Carl Lucas, he reinvented himself as Luke Cage, chosen in recognition of his true surname and in memory of his time in prison, and he launched his career as Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, fighting minor mob figures and helping anyone who could meet his fee. And eventually, following the example of superheroes that had become his peers, he took on the codename Power Man. During the 1990s, he was forced to go on the run. He landed in Chicago and changed his look to something more Mike Tyson-like, or Balrog from Street Fighter, and set up a new hero-for-hire business. He later hooked up with superpowered private eye Jessica Jones, and they share a daughter together. Now, I bet some of y'all think he's an Uncle Tom for that, don't you? No, I'm kidding. Now, you probably think he's an Uncle Tom for working with Danny Rand during the whole Power Man and Iron Fist era. No, I'm kidding with that one too. But about his powers, I'm curious. Since his skin is already steel hard and his muscles are dense, how does it affect him when he's engorged? Like this?
Blue steel, gentlemen.
For Christ's sake.
3.5 inches of hard blue steel.
Rage. Elvin Darrell Haliday was exposed to an odd mixture of biochemical toxic wastes while hiding in a drainage ditch. He was 13 years old at the time, but the toxic wastes mutated his body and his age at an accelerated rate over the following days, making him look completely bald and at least 15 years older. He also developed considerably increased height and muscle mass, reaching superhuman class 70 to 90 strength level, along with superhuman speed, endurance, and resistance to all manner of physical harm. His power is at least partially related to his emotional state, as aggressive demonstrations of his strength, such as hurling a punch for instance, are on a higher level of strength than all other demonstrations, like lifting or other forms. Completely bulletproof, he can smash through concrete walls with ease and survive a multi-story fall unhurt. His speed allows him to run faster than 100 miles per hour, and he can outrace an express train with ease. He has limited training in the piloting of the Avengers' supersonic Quinjets, just enough to perform basic flying procedures without an autopilot. He also briefly used an air cycle purchased from AIM that could fly at speeds of up to 300 miles per hour. Trained in unarmed combat by Captain America, Night Thrasher, and the Gauntlet, Rage has learned marksmanship, first aid, aquatics, and other skills via initiative instruction. Some fun facts. Rage was born and raised in Brooklyn, and he's been described as between 12 and 14 years old when he received his powers, at which time he was running away from some racist bullies who thought that he was in the wrong neighborhood when he was really there just meeting another boy to trade some comic books. And the waters that he was hiding in were already polluted before Fisk biochem workers dumped more illegal chemical waste into the creek, dousing Elvin with it. He then ran home to his granny Staples, who had spent years raising him in the absence of his parents. She nursed him back to health over a period of days, and he recovered quickly. And in the ensuing days, he went through a tremendous growth spurt that gave him a superhumanly powerful adult body. At first, he wanted to take revenge on his tormentors, but his devoutly religious granny Staples dissuaded him and encouraged him to use his powers for good. Fashioning a makeshift costume from a ski mask and a leather outfit with the word Rage printed on the back of his jacket in flaming capital letters, Elvin began operating as a super vigilante known as Rage at the age of 14, targeting street criminals at first. At the same time, Rage applied for membership in the Avengers, but he was turned away at first for his obnoxious introduction and because he called out the team for not having any members who were visible minorities, which at the time he was right about. But he impressed the group enough after aiding them against various villains, enough to offer him membership despite being unaware of how young Elvin really was. You see, the Avengers' automated security clearance system approved him since it had not yet been programmed to reject candidates on the basis of age. But eventually, they did learn, and as such, they demoted him to trainee status. Eventually, he was befriended by the New Warriors, and he even helped them steal an Avengers Quinjet for an emergency rescue mission. That action got him expelled from the Avengers, and he promptly joined the New Warriors, becoming a mainstay of the group and forming a close relationship with his teammate Speedball. When the Poison Memory Street Gang discovered the New Warriors' secret identities, they killed Rage's granny Staples, and then Rage in turn cold-bloodedly killed their gang leader during their final battle against the New Warriors, even though a judge later deemed Rage's actions as self-defense. The New Warriors leader, Dwayne Taylor, aka Night Thrasher, and Dwayne's mentor, Andrew Cord, were appointed as Elvin's legal guardians, and the similarly orphaned Dwayne tried to give Elvin guidance in dealing with his loss. And around this time, Elvin also befriended a 21-year-old single mother named Dalia Flores after saving her 4-year-old daughter Shanice from being hit by a car, though Elvin was uncertain of how to deal with the older Dalia's obvious romantic interest in him. Now mind you, Rage was not part of the New Warriors during the Stamford incident, you know, the one that led to the Civil War event. But eventually, a group of Stamford survivors, they funded an anti-New Warriors website that encouraged attacks on the team's remaining members and also revealed their secret identities. Aided by lawyer Jennifer Walters, aka the She-Hulk, Rage and fellow New Warriors veteran Justice, aka Vance Astrovic, they sued the website. When former New Warriors member Hindsight was exposed as the site's creator, it was revealed that he was trying to drive the team's remaining members into retirement out of horrified shame over the Stamford incident. So Rage, Justice, and other former New Warriors members, they wrecked Hindsight's home and forced him to shut the website down. During Civil War, Rage reluctantly signed up with the government's 50-state initiative as a cadet, training at Camp Hammond to become a licensed superhero, but he hated to find himself being treated like a rookie after all his time as a member of both the Avengers and the New Warriors. And he was outraged by the way the initiative personnel, such as Drill Sergeant Gauntlet, routinely demonized the New Warriors as reckless menaces. Rage was later killed by a Venom symbiote, but later resurfaced alive as part of a group of heroes that were called together by Mr. Fantastic in the Negative Zone to fight the forces of the Cancerverse who were led by the Sentry. A little comparison. Both Luke Cage and Rage are bald, black New Yorkers, raised by their grandmothers, and they've been Avengers, and their stories have involved race, especially Cage, as he was created in direct response to the 70s blaxploitation era, just as The Punisher was created in the same era as an inspiration from the on-screen revenge films and anti-hero protagonists. Also, though the Black Panther is the first black superhero, and the Falcon is the first Black American or African American superhero, Luke Cage is the first black superhero to have his own series, Luke Cage Hero for Hire. He's also the inspiration behind the stage name for Nicolas Coppola, aka Nicolas Cage, who's known to be a big comic book fanboy. Now, the toxic waste that turned Elvin Haliday into Rage, that was from Fisk Biochem, which is owned by Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. So really, Rage owes his entire superhuman power set to the Kingpin. He may have been inspired by the 1988 film Big, starring Tom Hanks, where a teenage boy wishes that he was big and then wakes up the next morning in the body of a 30-something-year-old man. Now Rage, he's an intelligent teen. In fact, he was 18 years old during the time of the Civil War initiative, showing Marvel's sliding timeline at work. And he even read at a college level when he first appeared and skipped a grade or two. Also, and this is just a theory of mine, Rage might possibly be a mutant. I mean, he was the right age for it to happen at the time those toxic wastes infected him, and all the toxic waste probably did was activate his X gene, accelerating his body past Captain America levels. Also, there's a theory that a mutant's power manifestation is somewhat influenced by thoughts and environment. So Elvin Haliday's superhuman adult body as Rage might possibly be his notion of an ideal self, a big, strong black man who can turn bullies into pulp. Here's the power comparison. Luke Cage, he's been a stable superhuman class 25 since he received his powers, and his transformation focused more on durability than strength. Yeah, think of sort of the opposite of Sunspot's classic setup. Also, Luke Cage's skin cannot be penetrated by anything short of adamantium or high-intensity lasers, and the rest of his body has an overall superhuman density and durability, which provides his strength. So by design, Luke can withstand punishment from strength classes quite higher than his own. Now, Rage's power levels, they varied constantly over the years as his body aged and his powers developed. What we do know for certain is that his aggressive releases of his strength, they measure in a higher weight class than passive efforts like lifting and pressing. For example, even though his normal strength level has been stated to be between class 70 and class 90, his punching power is substantially greater at the same time, striking with over 200 tons of force. But overall, even with that considered, Luke Cage wins. I mean, yes, Rage is stronger in the sense of the madder the Hulk gets, the stronger he gets, but Cage, he has greater experience. Rage, he's a superhuman linebacker and very smart, but at the end of the day,
He's just a kid.
so Cage wins. Alright, Shackhousers, that's what I got for you this week. Next week, I'm going to be doing 5 Black Mutants. That's right, 5 Black Mutants, some of which you know, some of which are obscure, but check it out then, and you guys have a good weekend, a good President's Day weekend. I'll see you next week. Later!
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!